landings didn't come easily. We had to miss the target a few times before we ultimately stuck the landing. But each of these landing attempts of how to not land an orbital rocket were teaching us what we needed to know in a flight-like environment to get that full picture of how all the systems interacted together.
Oh man, yeah, this is me trying to not get goosebumps watching this first drone ship landing. I hosted that webcast and it was so exciting to see that iterative development approach that we took finally paid off after so many attempts of failing. Now that failure is expected to help improve future designs of our vehicles and systems. So fast forward to present day, we've landed F9 boosters over 245 times since our first reflight of an orbital class booster 6 years ago.
Yeah, and it really comes down to our design philosophy. If you're not failing in some way, then there's room to learn and push the design to improve. And failure doesn't just mean blowing up a rocket. It might mean not being as efficient as we want to be or producing slower than we want to. So that approach has been the basis of how we've made all of our major innovative advancements.
All right, now Falcon 9 has certainly come a long way, and Starship will too. But as a reminder, today is a test. We really hope to get to stage separation, but any data received will help us improve. It's the second of many future flight tests of Starship before it becomes fully operational.
And these flight tests teach us about the limits of our design. They help us improve our understanding of the vehicle, and ultimately will help us to make Starship more reliable and rapidly reusable. So again, whatever the outcome and however far we get today, we can promise excitement. So why are we doing all of this? Why do we need a rocket this big, and why does it need to be reusable so quickly? And that answer goes back to SpaceX's mission, which is to make life multiplanetary.
We aren't just building a new spacecraft, we're changing what it means to go to space. By building the most powerful rocket ever flown and a ship designed to carry people, cargo, habitat, satellites, and more, we're unlocking a future where our dreams of exploration will no longer exceed our grasp. And this mission continues with flights like today's integrated test.
And these are flights where we're going to fail fast, but learn even faster, where each time we're going to try something new while flying something that we've improved. And ultimately, that's going to build up a fleet to fly early and often as Starship rapidly evolves to become more capable and more reliable.
The first stop is our nearest neighbor, with a surface that hasn't seen visitors in more than 50 years. Under Artemis with NASA, Starship will return people back to the moon. After those first expeditions, we'll be ready to fly more people along with everything that it takes to build a moon base. Think about that. Hardware that will enable us to live on another world is sitting on a launch pad on Earth right now.
And the moon is just the proving ground. When the time comes to make that leap to Mars, everything gets ratcheted up by orders of magnitude.
The logistics of supporting an entire city on Mars are daunting, requiring millions of pounds of cargo flown from Earth spread out over thousands of launches. And we just broke our own record for the number of launches in a single year, and we're going to break it again next year.
Now, in the years to come, Starship is going to dwarf those figures as we bring it online and truly make life multiplanetary. But for now, anyway, as the clock counts down to today's flight test, why don't we get another status update from John?
We're just over 9 minutes from liftoff as the countdown clock clicks to 0. The teams, good news is, teams aren't working any significant issues on the launch vehicle right now. Propellant loading is continuing on both the Super Heavy and the ship stages. Most recently, we began loading LOX and methane fuel into the header tanks on the Starship. And on the graphic on the left side of the screen, you can see up in the nose of the second stage, what we call Starship, are those 2 header tanks for fuel and liquid oxygen. Now that loading started at T-minus 24 minutes and will continue until approximately T-minus 5.5 minutes. Now Starship's second stage main fuel and LOX tanks are loaded for flight. And the second stage propellant that we're loading on board is going through the quick disconnect that comes out on the arm that's located at the base of the stage from the tower. Now on the Super Heavy booster, propellant loading will continue until T-minus 3 minutes. We've also configured the pad for liftoff. A little earlier in the count, the hold downs, the booster hold downs were commanded to unlatch. That means once the rocket has sufficient thrust to overcome its weight, it'll lift off the pad. There's no need to command the hold downs to release the rocket. As we mentioned earlier also, the ignition sequence has been slightly modified from the last flight for a more efficient liftoff. As a reminder, we ignite the engines a few seconds before T0. We don't lift off exactly at T0. We lift off a few seconds later, a couple seconds. Finally, the SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard to ensure there are no boats in the safety perimeter before proceeding with launch out over the Gulf of Mexico. Now, currently, we're coming up T-minus 7 minutes, 10 seconds to the test flight of Starship. Propellant loading is continuing on both stages of Starship. We're waiting now for the completion of loading of the header tanks in the next few minutes. The first stage is also beginning pressurization for flight while we are continuing to load propellant into it. And again, booster propellant load will finish at approximately T-minus 3 minutes. At that stage, both first and second stages are fully loaded, and we'll have the 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board the 2 stages of Starship. Now, in the next few minutes, the guidance system will perform its final alignment. We'll get the automated flight termination system that'll arm, and the final TVC checkout will be performed. We may get a view looking up at the engines as we gimbal the 13 middle engines to check them out just before liftoff at about T-minus 90 seconds. If we need to hold, it would come at T-minus 40 seconds. That's the point in the countdown where we can pause to wait for final checkouts or pressurization to complete. Or, as we're hearing right now, we're still working a few boats in the area that are headed south. And a lot of cheering here in Hawthorne. The boats are heading south, but we are still planning to hold at T-minus 40 seconds if necessary.
Just amazing views of today's launch. There's nothing quite like a launch at basically sunrise. Sunrise, I think, was just about 10 or 15 minutes ago out at Starbase.
Yeah, these views are just incredible. Couldn't ask for a more beautiful day to attempt a test flight here. Again, these are live views of Starship as it awaits its second integrated flight test. Our primary objective today is to get through stage separation. We really want to test out our attempt to perform hot staging, where we are going to ignite the engines on the second stage while some of the engines on the first stage are still lit. So essentially both stages will be making fire at the same time, and that will push the booster away from the ship. It'll separate the 2 stages. So that's the primary goal for today. We really hope to be able to test that out. But at the end of the day, all and any data that we can collect is going to be incredibly helpful and help inform future improvements and iterations of the vehicle.
Yeah, Kate, there are other objectives for today too, assuming we get farther than stage separation. There's goals to test out how reentry goes on the ship portion. If the booster survives stage separation, then it's going to try a boost back burn and hopefully a soft landing as a sort of dress rehearsal for what it would look like on land. So everything coming up to that big design change, though, of hot staging today.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, that booster, it will be attempting a water landing in the Gulf of Mexico. We don't intend to recover any of the hardware for either the ship or the booster today. But that booster, yeah, we want to try and to demonstrate controlled ascent through most engine cutoff. We want to try to demonstrate that hot staging separation and boost back flip, trying to basically demonstrate controlled burn and entry and that soft water landing. Like you said, it will help inform when we attempt a land landing, but we start in the water first.
Exactly.
Just like we did with the Falcon 9.
Yeah, exactly. And, just getting to hot staging, though, is going to be farther than we got on Flight 1.
Yes.
Flight 1, that was about as far as we got. We didn't have hot staging on that vehicle. So that's the first and foremost objective today. Get that far, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Now, one thing that's a little cool about Starship, and it's different from Falcon 9, is we can actually hold a little bit longer if we needed to than we can on Falcon 9 missions. Once we get to T-minus 40 seconds, and if we did have a hold, depending on the reason for the hold, we can hold for up to 30 minutes. And today, actually, our entire launch window is about 20 minutes, so the hold duration would cover most of our launch window.
Yeah.
And that's different from Falcon.
Yeah, absolutely. With Falcon, we have to go exactly at T0. That 40-second hold is super helpful. If we need to, for example, we need more time to pressurize the COPVs for flight levels. Perhaps fuel.
If the engineers just need to look at some of the data, see how engines are performing or the avionics.
Exactly. Those checkouts, being able to have the opportunity to top off the fuel or LOX if it's not fully loaded. And, we might want to just take a few more minutes for that. So that T-minus 40-second hold can be really helpful. But we don't have that option on Falcon. So it's a little bit different here.
We're just inside T-minus 2 minutes and counting. The good news right now, we're hearing it doesn't look like we're going to need to hold a T-minus 40-second as the boats are clearing out of the way. Next event coming up, TVC wiggles as we move the center engines on the first stage. You can see maybe just a little bit there. 90 seconds, wiggles are underway as we're checking out the first stage. TVC checks are complete. Next major event we're going to hear, hopefully, is the flight director go for launch at T-minus 30 seconds. As we're coming up on T-minus 1 minute, when we get to T-minus 40 seconds, we'll just listen in. Last time, as you recall, we did hold at 40 seconds, but it took a few seconds for the clock to recover, so we're going to watch that. And as we press to T0, we're going to watch and listen to the second test flight of Starship.
T-minus 30 seconds. Back to rapid recycle.
Back at Hawthorne, we're at T-minus 40 seconds in holding. We had a rapid recycle. We've not heard anything over the countdown net as the team works both first and second stages. We're going to monitor the nets here for a minute. Got a little bit of an update. We're continuing to hold at T-minus 40 seconds. This is the normal hold point for Starship, as we talked earlier. Sounds like we're working just late pressurization on, I believe, the second stage. Team is working it. All the other systems are on hold right now at 40 seconds. We can hold here for about 15 minutes or so before we would run out of window for this morning. So right now they're working on filling pressure vessels, and ideally we'll be able to solve this and come back and release the clock at T-minus 40 seconds. We're going to continue to listen and monitor for another few minutes.
And it's worth mentioning here that don't go away. We are holding at T-minus 40 seconds, but once the teams have resolved and see the data that they want to see, the clock can restart straight away, and it'll start ticking down from T-minus 40 again, all towards liftoff.
Yeah, exactly. Now, while we do have the ability to hold for up to 30 minutes, we only have a 20-minute launch window, so don't go away, don't change the channel, and just like Shiva said, we can restart that clock, and there it is.
And there it goes.
Clock is rolling. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Vehicle pitching downrange.
Chambers pressure nominal.
We are T plus 40 seconds into the flight of Starship. 33 Raptor engines powering the first stage.
Power and telemetry nominal.
We've heard power and telemetry nominal call out. We're heading downrange over the Gulf of Mexico. And that call out tells us Starship is through the period of greatest stress on the way to space. Now the next major event is hot staging in just over 90 seconds from now. To get ready, the booster will shut down all but 3 of the Raptor engines. Clamps holding the 2 stages together will release, and the Starship's second stage will ignite its engines. Starship will then separate from the Super Heavy booster and head to space. And at the same time, the 3 engines that are still firing on Super Heavy will flip the booster around. 10 more engines will ignite for the boost back burn, putting the first stage on path for a splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. Engine power continues to look nominal on 33 Raptor engines. We're about to shut down the first stage and perform staging. Let's watch and listen.
And acquisition of signal Houston and New Orleans.
Booster engine cut off. Stage separation.
Boost back startup.
Ship engine ignition.
You're hearing the cheering. The first ever successful hot stage for SpaceX's Starship.
Incredible views of our Super Heavy booster. And as you can see, the Super Heavy booster has just experienced a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. However, our ship is still underway with all
avionics,
6.
Power and telemetry nominal.
And we just heard there, ship avionics, power and telemetry nominal. All 6 engines are lit, as you can see from the GUI there at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Now, we did know that that hot staging was going to be incredibly dynamic. We knew that there was a chance that the booster would not survive, but we're going to take that data and figure out how we can make the booster better for the next hot stage.
Yeah, that hot staging put a lot of load on the top of the booster, and of course it flipped around there, a lot of dynamic stuff happening. But ship is still going strong.
And it's doing great. Right now, the ship, the second stage, is on its way. Like we said, you can see all 6 of its engines are ignited. The The next major milestone for the ship will be the shutdown of those engines, or SECO, second engine cutoff, which if you follow our Falcon 9 launches, familiar terminology there. So far, today has been incredibly successful, even with the RUD of the Super Heavy booster. This is amazing.
Primary objective of the booster today, to get to hot staging, to get ship on its way to orbit. It did that admirably.
Yeah, we definitely asked.
Starship trajectory nominal.
All right, great news there. That trajectory for ship is
Acquisition of
nominal.
signal, Cape Canaveral.
Once again, Starship's second stage is firing those engines. And as you just heard, everything's looking good. Now, for the ship, we wanted it to survive hot staging, which, as you can see there by that little dot on your screen, it did. We also want to basically demonstrate that the successful startup of those engines, demonstrating controlled ascent, which is what it's doing right now, and eventually orbital insertion. We are hoping to basically send this around the Earth, and if it makes it this far, splash down in the Pacific Ocean, a couple hundred miles north of Hawaii. Now, if we get that far, like, all of that sounds great. Secondary objectives for ship, again, continuing to gather engine data and about its health, performance.
Nominal ship chamber pressures.
Great news there. That tells us that the chamber pressures inside of the Starship, again, that's that small dot on your screen, basically the propellant pressures in the ship are looking good.
Yeah, the bottom right corner of your screen, you can see essentially a user interface showing us which engines are lit. So the 3 center sea level Raptor engines on ship are gimbaling engines. The 3 outer engines in the triangle, the larger ones, are Raptor vacuum engines. All of them continuing to fire nominally. So they're at the pressures that we expect to try to get into our target trajectory today.
Yeah.
And we're not targeting orbit today. We're targeting almost orbit today. That's very intentional as part of the mission design. The goal is to get to a thrust profile similar to what we would need for orbit, but also to get to the energy levels that the ship would need to dissipate for re-entry. And so we're actually going in a suborbital trajectory today, but that trajectory will get us to the energy levels that we need at re-entry, where we can really stress that heat shield and get valuable data on re-entry. And those calls that we are still on a nominal trajectory here and seeing nominal pressures means that we have a really good shot of hitting our target orbit.
Yeah. Now, if the booster had survived, we would be around the time where it would be getting ready to land, performing its re-entry, but it unfortunately did not survive. That being said, that's okay. It survived several seconds after hot staging, so we're going to take that data and improve the hot staging sequence and probably improve the hardware itself for the next flight.
Are standing by for a call out here. Coming up on the projected time that ship would shut down its engines.
As you can tell by the excitement from the crowd here at Mission Control Center in Hawthorne, there's a great view of our Star Command Center. That's our control center at Starbase Texas. The crowd here, Mission Control Center behind us in Hawthorne. Everyone is super exciting. What a successful day this has been so far.
And I mean, up to this point, major successful milestones through hot staging, which was the big objective today. So we are going to head into the coast phase, planned for the next about hour and 5 minutes. We'll be returning around the T+1 hour and 15-minute mark. And that's while we're waiting for Starship to continue on to its next step for reentry. We're not totally sure what video we're going to get, and that video comes normally by overflying ground stations, but we don't have a ton along our flight path. So fingers crossed that we will get some via Starlink on this mission since we're testing that out. And also give us a moment. We are hearing some chatter on the net, so we're going to try to parse that for you.
John Innsbrucker back here in Hawthorne at our webcast desk. We have lost the data from the second stage. We had heard a call out that we were internal guidance, which means we were getting near the end of the approximately 6-minute burn of Starship. But we haven't gotten any more data since then. So we think we may have lost the second stage. So we would not be into coast phase. We wouldn't be able to come back in an hour or so and possibly get ready for reentry. However, what we do know right now is we had an on-time launch at 7 o'clock. We got through the boats. First stage looked beautiful with 33 Raptor engines firing. We got the hot staging, you know, the thing that we really wanted to see and impressed. We saw the separation. We saw the flip maneuver. We saw the light up of the 6 Raptor engines on Starship, and it headed away. Everything really looked good. But what we do believe right now is that the automated flight termination system on second stage appears to have triggered very late in the burn as we were headed downrange out over the Gulf of Mexico. But the real topping on the cake today, that successful liftoff, Kate, Shiva, the hot staging is just beautiful. Exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah, ultimately, honestly, such an incredibly successful day. Even though we did have a RUD or a rapid unscheduled disassembly of both the Super Heavy booster and the ship, that's great. We got so much data, and that will all help us to improve for our next flight.
Of course, and that's why we flight test, and you can bet that there's going to be more to come. So we really do want to thank you all for joining us. Of course, we want to thank the people of Cameron County. We want to thank all the federal agencies that have supported us for our test, and of course, a huge congratulations to the entire SpaceX team on getting through this flight test today. And I think with that, we're going to sign off from here in Hawthorne.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.